All right, hello, coffee makers, not coffee takers. He is the master of cyber farms, Alfredo B. Nash Jr., and I, the people's chief, Dr. Joseph J. Bermilla Jr. We are your hosts for the Cyber Coffee Hour. Alfredo and I hail from Mount Vernon, New York, and we are excited to share our experiences and stories along with those of our incredible guests. Our mission is to impart knowledge, enhance understanding, and cultivate a sense of community in the expansive world of cyberspace. Now, for today's show, we will have a coffee chat with the founder and CEO of BforeAI, Luigi Lenguito. Luigi Lenguito is the founder and CEO of BforeAI, driving the company's vision, strategy, and sales after recognizing the need for a shift in the cybersecurity paradigm. From a reactive to a preemptive approach, he invested in applying behavioral predictive analytics to network data. Under his leadership, BforeAI is pioneering predictive security through its PreCrime solutions. Since childhood, Luigi has had a passion for IT. Over his 30-year career, he gained various experience and skills from IT operations to M&A and cybersecurity before launching several entrepreneurial ventures. Today, he is committed to advancing innovation in predictive security and ensuring organizations stay one step ahead of cyber threats. Luigi is a dedicated supporter of initiatives fostering the next generation of diverse tech talent and entrepreneurship. Originally from Naples, Italy, Luigi can be found between Montpellier, France, and New York City, U.S. He is an active participant in numerous associations and seminars and indulges his love of speed tracking his Dallara Stradale in his off time. Luigi Lenguito, welcome to the Cyber Coffee Hour.
Hi, thank you very much for having me. Really honored.
You really got me digging deep into my work with these words. No, it's good. I'm expanding the vocabulary. I like
Absolutely.
it. It's good education.
Well done.
Well, Luigi, we're definitely excited to have you on. How you been, man? I mean, I know things been busy, but just how you week been so far?
All good. Listen, very busy indeed. The company's growing very well. I think in the last 4 weeks, I must have been in more than 20 cities across the globe. So a lot of travels, but very exciting times, both for the team and for the customers, and as a whole for this innovation that we are developing. So really excited.
Awesome. Alfredo, how you been, sir?
Fair to middling today. A little dehydrated. Got out there in my yard and went a little extra. Hugging trees and cutting grass back and getting ready to bring the season in. Outside of that, doing a little generative AI study with Databricks. So Databricks generative AI. I just knocked out 2 Google fundamental AI courses. And then I'm going to circle back to Hack the Box. After our last episode, I had to update my Hack the Box account and didn't realize how my progress was in that. And Tori really motivated me to get after it. So, but outside of that, great. How are we fortunate to meet you, Luigi?
This is a long time ago. I think I just came across your podcast and I shoot you a note and say, it'd be great to have a chat.
Nice.
I think that's I'm so curious. I'm always trying to learn something new, and to be honest, I don't remember how, but I definitely remember seeing you guys speaking, and I say, this must be a nice chat to have with them.
Very cool. It's good to hear. Yeah.
Awesome. As for me, October is baseball. It's postseason. I'm locked in. So last night was game 1 of the Yankees and Royals, and my heart rate was just going off the charts because a lot of Yankees about to win and they was losing. It's back and forth. It was crazy, but we ended up winning the game, so I'm good.
I saw your post on LinkedIn. I was instantly energized.
I'm good until game 2, and then I do it all over. All right. So let's get started. So Luigi, you've had a fascinating career journey from IT support to founding a cutting-edge cybersecurity company. What essential experiences or insights led you to recognize the need for a preemptive approach to cybersecurity?
Listen, it's and thanks for the kudos on the career. It's definitely been a fascinating journey. It's been very serendipitous, to be honest. What it was now, more than 10 years ago, I basically left Dell, where I'd been for nearly 20 years. I semi-retired to get back to my cars. I'm an ex-Formula 3 driver, so to your earlier point, I love speed and tracking cars. So I basically left corporate to just have a couple of years of break and enjoying life. And as I was doing that, I got invited in a research program from university, where they had a lot of technologies and they were trying to bring those to markets. And at the time I was searching for ventures to start, and I knew it should have been in cybersecurity because obviously the market was growing and the problem is very serious. They say that today is the number 2 second risk, if you want, for the globe after climate change. So I was looking at participating and trying to bring something there. And when I met these researchers and learned what they were doing, it kind of brought me back about 20 years when I was selling network firewalls at Dell. And customer always said, Luigi, great, this latest technology like deep packet inspection, next generation firewalls, but we're always slow, we're always late, we're always victim. How come nobody's able to bring up a solution before the attack happens? And one customer I remember said, Luigi, you really need to go to the movies. There is this one from Steven Spielberg with Tom Cruise, Minority Report. You love it. And I'm sure in the audience, many will remember, right? The 3 mutants in the pool, you could see the future of crime with Agatha, being the minority of one. And then, Tom Cruise, Agent Anderson jumping in the scene and blocking the crime before crime was made, right? And first of all, if you haven't watched the movies, it's really very, very nice. Even if it's, nearly 20 years old, it's still a very cool movie, quite action-packed. But besides, I thought at the time, well, this is so cool. It'd be great to have it in network security, this kind of capability to foresight attacks. I just don't believe the mutant, at the time would be the kind of solution for it, right? But big data and predictive analytics are kind of the big buzzword. And so in my mind, I thought, well, one day somebody will be able to take all this data from internet routing and, firewalls and Windows and Linux boxes, logs, and mash it up with predictive analytics, identifying, criminals as they bring their activities to life and eventually block them. And, little I knew that 20 years later, I would be speaking with this researcher that was explaining me what basically was PreCrime. And so when I saw it, I thought, I need to bring it to market. This is the future of cybersecurity. It will help us kind of rebalance a world of cybersecurity that has gone, to my sense, too much in a reactive mode. Everybody speak about detection response, assume breach. If you think about it, it's basically accepting to be a victim. And I understand, I'm not saying we should stop it, but I think, keeping a victim posture is not healthy. We see a lot of people burning out. I personally don't like to be a victim. I think we should be actor of our defenses. And hence the investment in PreCrime. And, today works. We were looking at some number over the, end of last week, more than 20 million victims per day avoided thanks to our intelligence going into some of our partner solutions. So very happy with what we've done.
That's impressive. That's impressive. I do have one follow up. Have you? Well, first, when I read about the PreCrime, my mind already went to that movie. So just so you know, I may show my age a bit. But seriously, so with that, have you or have you gotten to the point where you're offering this or having this as a solution even for like the public or government sector?
At the moment, we really focus on the commercial businesses. We're still a startup, so obviously the kind of the procurement speed of government is incompatible with the survival of a small company.
I could attest to that.
Right.
Me too, bud. Me too.
Right. So I'm sure we have helped some government with some specific use cases where reactively they've asked us and we provided them the data, but all our customers are commercial customers, mostly in manufacturing, financial services, retail, advertising, critical infrastructure. But certainly as the company will structure, we'll definitely be more open to work with the government. We are part of the CISA JCDC, so we do contribute our data to protecting the country infrastructure. So as I said, it's just that commercially speaking, that's not our priority, but where we can, we do help.
Gotcha. So I had an author thought before we jump into the next question. I was biting the inside of my cheek when you said Minority Report, because I didn't know that was 20 years. I remember when that movie came out and it was like super sci-fi, like people believed it was on the fringe. The question I have for you, particularly with your sales model, is Before AI considered like a managed service security provider? Or are they value adding?
No, we play in two spaces. One is the predictive attack intelligence, that is a new kind of threat intelligence where we are before the attack rather than during the attack. And the other one is the impersonation protection. So where we block the likes of phishing, credential stealings, and the like. Is a service as a software, I call it. So it's definitely a standalone infrastructure. You don't need to send any data to us. We collect the data from the internet to do the prediction, and we provide either the data to block the attack, if you want to protect your network. So we give you the foresight. It's like a weather forecast system. Basically, we give you the prediction that are consumed by the likes of firewall and anti-phishing filter, or we can actually stop the attack ourselves in case our customer want to protect their own customers. And imagine today, 90% of the infrastructure takedown we complete are without any content loaded yet. Literally PreCrime, because obviously, if there's no content, there's no possible attack that has yet to happen, right? So, but definitely I can confirm that inspiration from Minority Report. We were lucky that 20th Century Fox did not trademark PreCrime, so we trademarked the word as well.
I needed to hear that part. So let's chop it up and dive into a little bit more too, right? Before AI's PreCrime solution uses behavioral predictive analytics on network data, as you mentioned. Can you explain in layman's terms how this technology works and why it's more effective than the traditional reactive security countermeasures you mentioned earlier?
Sure. I mean, the first of all, in today's world, you hear a lot of AI washing and things like that, right? This technology started about 15 years ago. It took 10 years to that university that I mentioned earlier to actually, release. And then it took us another couple of years to develop. And since we keep developing, and it is indeed prescriptive AI. So it's another kind of branch of the artificial intelligence and machine learning algorithms. So how does it work? I think the easiest is to think to the analogy of the weather forecast system, right? So we have an infrastructure that observes the whole internet. We collect 6 times every hour all the network meta layer of internet. So routing announcement with BGPs, new IP6 addresses configured, movement of infrastructure from one cloud to another. We call them the jumping hosts. All the changes to the DNS configuration of all the infrastructure in the globe. So think to it like, you probably know Web Archive, this site where you can go back and forth on a website. Well, it's similar, but at the network meta layer. We have a history of the last 5 years of all the network changes in the world every 10 minutes, basically. Now we have all the data, the machine learning convert that, it's like a cartoon, right? You have the single still slides and then you convert them in a movie by moving them very fast. So that's what the machine learning does. It takes all these snapshots and convert into behaviors. So we have the map of all the behaviors of all the more than 1.5 billion infrastructure connected to internet today. What is a behavior is a change of all these network parameters, right? It's maybe an infrastructure that today changed the name server, 3 days from now move from Amazon to Google Cloud, 2 hours later an MX address get loaded on the DNS, 5 minutes later that IP address of that MX server moved by 20%, away from our beacons, and so on and so forth, right? So it's a mix of private and public data. So now that we have all these behaviors mapped, right? Today we have more than 5 billion behavior in the knowledge graph. We train the system to recognize a good and a bad behavior. And that works by example, right? So we give example of good infrastructures and example of bad infrastructures. The system retrieve the behavior known of those infrastructures and tag all the other behavior in the database for proximity. So you end up, with this universal behavior with the light side of the force and the dark side of the force in there. And then with the same data that we build the behavior, we check for behavioral change, right? So what we are looking at is these infrastructures that maybe have been on a good behavior for 9 months and now they start to deviate and get closer and closer to bad behavior. Maybe a new infrastructure that starts, stays silent for 2 months, and then suddenly starts on a bad behavior. So basically what the system does is observing the DevOps of the criminal as they establish their own infrastructures. And our research and the benchmark show that by the time we see, that they are close enough to bad behavior and we signal with what we call the PreCrime score, we are 3 weeks median before the attack happens. It can be up to 9 months before the attack happens, for more sophisticated ransomware, I don't know, data exfiltration type stuff, or as short as 6 hours for very simple, maybe, I don't know, fake websites and things like that, right?
Or fraud ring.
So the beauty is, if we stay on the median, that is the majority of our prediction being 3 weeks before the attack happens, you can imagine how much preparation you can do, right? So you can obviously do the easy, that is the preemptive blocking, where your DNS resolver, your firewall will not communicate to those infrastructure because we give you the insight. Or you can do what we do for our impersonation protection customer. We can shut down those infrastructure, going to the cloud hosters or the registrars and so on, and show them those behaviors so that they take down the infrastructure before it become active for the attack. And as I said, today about 88% of the takedowns are completed with no content yet loaded on the infrastructure. So the advantage, compared to a reactive solution, is that first of all, when you have a reactive solution, you have to bet that you are going to be fast enough to identify, that attack and block it. But even if you are identifying it very fast, you still are going to have to do some remediation in your network, some forensics to see that nothing else has been left over. And so the advantage of blocking it before the attack happens is you save all that downstream, right? So it's and I think common sense, how they say, an ounce of prevention is better than a pound of cure, right? So that's really where we're coming from. I would say the advanced, compared to pure prevention solution where you try to block a number of attacks with a standard set of controls. In our case, we are more in preemption mode because we block that specific attack. We know exactly the attack. We get it right 99.95% of the time, and we guarantee our prediction. So we say our customer, hey, we get it right 99% of the time. If we get it wrong and you get the attack, we'll cover the cost of the attack up to 10 times the value of our contract. And this is backed by Munich Re, the global insurer, that spent time in our system for more than 9 months to verify that basically they will never have to pay anything. Insurances as they are, right? So they found that we were absolutely announcing what the system does. And this is the result, as I said, of all that research. There are 4 patents on this technology, plus the self-learning capability. The system learn from mistakes. Now 5 years later, and with large customer like Philips and Signify and many of the largest financial institutions, the system has learned a lot.
Luigi, I'm gonna take this real quick, digest. My brain is lighting up like a fireworks show right now. You said so much that it's inspired me. So I have a question. About 10 years ago, I heard a rumor that it takes 1 gig of data approximately 15 minutes to go around the world, right?
Mm-hmm.
You said in your research that it took 10 minutes for you to gather that cyber knowledge graph. Was that initially included in the research you're talking about? Like how
that's one of the things we actually had to build. So the research was all about how you do the prediction and the model themselves.
Mm-hmm.
But of course, the challenge was, okay, now to do this prediction, you need to have the full visibility of the internet. So how do you do that, right? And so we built an infrastructure. I mean, I'm sure the audience know about Shodan and Team Symbro and Gray Noise and all of that, right? So we have our own, obviously tuned for our specific, right? It's in a very distributed infrastructure, hundreds of thousands of virtual machines on all the clouds that, collect this data. The beauty of it is that we don't have to do any active scanning. So we're not generating noise. We're only receiving the data from the network. So we're basically just sniffing, if you want, right? And it's not, we're not collecting content. We're not doing like NetFlow. So it's also not, privacy sensitive because the type of data we are looking at is just a network movement, not what is being transferred, right? And so that enables us to do this in a very scalable way. Consider every day, I think we are absorbing, something along the line of 10 terabytes of information from the internet, and then this data has to be converted in models, and then used for the calculation. And so the machine is quite sophisticated. We call it Agatha, like the Minority Report lady.
The one in the garden, right?
Absolutely, yeah. So,
nice.
That's pretty cool.
That's amazing.
We have Arthur as well. That is all the data feeds, and we have Wally. That is the the actual supervisor, the watchdog of the system. So
So I'm missing one key part here, right? So that's hell yeah on the name. That's cool that you
Thank you.
aligned it to the precog universe. The second part that I'm missing is Andrew, right? You sound like you're like either real time or near real time. How do you? I hate to even ask this, but how do you get the authorization? Like you have to be one on one with law enforcement for those takedowns, right?
Yeah, no, so it's actually easier than that because we work with all these providers. So first of all, we do two things, right? So as we identify the prediction that is relevant to one of our customer, say for example a bank, and we want to stop this phishing attack that before it starts, we collaborate with likes of Google Safe Browsing, Quad9 DNS, VirusTotal, all these people, and in less than 5 minutes we can block more than 75% of the internet traffic reaching that malicious destination. So we are 3 weeks before the attack starts. We are already in 5 minutes blocking the most of internet to connect with that infrastructure. And then in parallel, we go to all the provider of service that are supporting that infrastructure, maybe the registrar for the domain name, maybe the cloud hoster for the infrastructure, the CDN for the proxy, and so on and so forth. And we share with them these technical details that our model is used for the prediction, and basically say, hey, your customer is about to commit cybercrime. Why do you want to help them, right? And of course, they are the third party. They will have to do the account suspension or takedown. So we're not using law enforcement. We're just basically going to all these players and say, your customer is going against your term of service, stop them, right? And
So
the good news is most of them are collaborative because they don't know that these customers are abusing of the network, and we are helping them stop the abuse of their system that they don't want to tolerate, right? So it's so what we are looking at, and again, law enforcement would not listen to us, I guess, because the fraud hasn't happened yet, the attack hasn't happened yet. So there is, we are truly pre-crime, so there is no proof that the attack will happen, right? So but again, we have proved through our history that we get it right 99 to 95% of the time, and from a term of service perspective, those players are happy to support us and avoid this crime to happen.
100%.
Excuse me for a second.
Yeah, you got it.
With that, does I know you mentioned that law enforcement won't actively take an action, but do they at least keep on the radar then when you do make those sort of reports or notifications? Do at least that they won't take any action, but they'll at least monitor?
Looks like we lost the feed.
Uh-oh.
For a cyber coffee hour first.
I'm back. So you were saying about
did you
the
catch
law
the question?
enforcement. Yes. So we, as I say, we do participate to some of these data sharing initiative like CISA JCDC. We're part of the European Cybersecurity Organization and others. But I would say, at this stage, it's more one of the data points they may use. I don't expect them to act just on us, but it's something that may enrich other investigations that they're running. And as I said, we have had previous request of data from let me show you with this one, right? So this is quite interesting. It was last Christmas, a week before, I got called by the French gendarmerie. So this is BforeAI used to be a French company, now it's a US company, but before we were French. And
right.
So the French gendarmerie connected with me and asked it to go to their police station to provide witnessing on an attack, right? So, and basically what had happened is a credit union here in the US that had connected with us a year before, claiming that we had a false positive in our reports because we announced it there. I don't know, I think it was their website on VirusTotal or something like that. Basically, that contacted us and say, there is this false positive, please correct it. And we replied saying, no, we're not going to correct anything because it's a problem. And here is the data. You have a problem, fix it, right? And then, maybe a month later, they come back and say, hey, we fixed it. Now you can clean the flag, and we actually had cleaned it overnight because the system, keeps scanning and correcting itself. Long story short, now a year later, I'm at this French gendarmerie, and basically what has happened is that credit union lost $10+ million in frauds, And they were obviously reporting this to FBI and say, these guys have BforeAI knew about it because they told us to check the system before we actually saw it. So maybe they have data about the criminals. And so we shared some of the data that we had from the system, and I hope it has helped, figuring out. But we know that our data is not really right for attribution and forensics. It's very good for before the attack, but
Right.
it doesn't, because it doesn't contain the TTPs, the techniques and the procedures. It's too early at the time in which we do the prediction to identify those. Then it doesn't really help with understanding who was that did the attack. And so
Gotcha.
so we share what we had. I hope it helped. But it's once again, it's not it's such a new type of philosophy. This one of pre-crime that I think we need to even the institution have to start thinking about it. But for now, what is important is that we stop the criminal before they make their deals. And that means that we're making their life very difficult. We actually measure something that's very interesting, a deterrence effect on our customer. Like after 9-12 months that we are constantly blocking those attacks, the number of attacks actually go down, declines, like the criminals goes away.
Right.
And the theory that we have is that basically because we stop the attack before the first victim is made, criminals are doing their investment in infrastructure. They're buying domains, they're buying fake, cloud provider capabilities and so on. But then they get nothing out of it because we stopped them before the attack happens. Then that means we are increasing the cost of this attack or reducing the ROI, if you want, by a lot. And so as these guys tend to be very lazy and economically driven, they move away to somebody else. And it's a bit like the tale of the two friends and the bear. You don't have to outrun the bear, you have to outrun your friend, right? So it's that kind of thing.
Exactly.
So
It's your cardio up. So you're essentially
I think that's
bankrupting
very
the
interesting
bad
for me
actors
because
too. You
it's
bankrupt them with each engagement.
yeah, making their life very, very miserable.
Yeah.
I'm back.
We got you back.
Okay.
Yeah, I would say we essentially making their life very miserable. So
100%. So that plays into our next question very well. As someone in the tech industry for 30 years, how do you see the cybersecurity landscape evolving over the next decade? And what role do you envision for predictive security?
So first of all, you said it very well, predictive security. You see, we don't call it cybersecurity because I think what's happening is that all the security is becoming cyber enabled, right? It's a little bit like, 10 years ago, people would talk of digital economy and economy. Today, all the economy is digital, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think, today we call cybersecurity, there is physical security, there is, process security, product security, all of these over time, because we are digitalizing everything and collecting the data, it will become all security powered by cyber. And so there is no reason why in 20 years from now, what we do at the moment for networks, we wouldn't be able to do, for example, in a building to identify, people that are going in areas that they shouldn't be doing, the actual pre-crime from Minority Report, right? But, this is maybe very long from now. If we look more in the kind of a medium term, one thing that, is everybody getting attention on is obviously these attacks powered by AI. And what I can tell you is definitely we are seeing an increasing volume of attacks. So our system in the last 6 months has predicted 400% more infrastructure of attack than it did previously. And it's, of course, we have improved the system, but it's literally the attacks that have gone up, or at least the infrastructure to do the attacks that have gone up. These are now happening, right? So now we are in the phase in which those predictions are realizing because and so I think there's definitely more volume coming and a lot more toward medium and small businesses. I think the criminal are going where there is less friction, and unfortunately those organizations are less protected. We see, and I think this in general in the industry, more variety of attacks, new techniques that keep being developed. And definitely the velocity is also going up very, very, very much, right? So I remember a couple of years ago, the dwell time will be something along 3-4 months. Now we are talking 2-3 weeks, right? So obviously things are going much faster in greater volume with greater diversity. And to me, that spelled we need to focus our human capabilities on the new type of attacks and use technology like prescriptive analytics or other automation to manage the volume of the attack. And I think most are still kind of stuck in the race, because there is a certain percentage of the cybersecurity industry that really like to outsmart the criminals, let's put it this way, right? They want to be in the fight. But I don't think organizations should be focused on that. They should be focused on not having the attack in the first place. Their business are elsewhere, not in fighting the criminals. So I think that's the future of the coming years, is a redistribution of the activity between the human intelligence and the artificial intelligence, if you want.
100%. You said the word that triggered my thought process, like you said, about a decade ago, and I heard this on another podcast. It was called Packet Pushers, right? They were talking about this hyperconvergence before cloud, and everything then was becoming software-defined network, software-defined vehicles, cloud security ontologies and architectures, and then the framework that came out was called a software factory. And so all these years later, we see from those software factories, cybersecurity magically evolved, right? We saw companies getting compromised. We saw different ontologies having weaknesses. And now looking at it 10 years later to what's going to happen to your point in 10 more years, it looks like we're seeing an AI convergence. And there's a book by this title too. I'll put that out there. But we're starting to see, like you said, cyber-enabled AI doing mutations in attack techniques. Right. And that's very scary because you're right. The human mind is like not able to keep up with all of these different attack vectors. So it's very interesting to hear from someone that's on the ball. But then also the next 10 years looks like, Skynet to me. I'm gonna be real. It looks like Skynet is already online. So can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, well, I mean, as much as we do prediction, I'm not Nostradamus, so I don't really know the exact thing, right? But I think we can definitely look at some trends, right? So again, criminals are becoming more and more professional. If you look at, I called it the upside down. For people in the audience that have seen Stranger Things, this would be of resonance. But basically, what it means that if you look at how those cyber criminals operate, is a very similar ecosystem to what we see of the one of startups, scale-ups, investors, right? It's replaced by mafia groups and ransomware groups and affiliates, and there are job posting for community manager tech support. I mean, it's unbelievable how how structured it is, and so that means that they are finding great return on investment, or they're making and racking millions and millions of profits from their angle, right? So this is attracting crime that before was more maybe in real life is also so it's not that the crime is increasing, is that there is a digitalization of crime, I think. So it's I think there is this trend. And then there are some situations that are really, really disturbing. I was reading recently about some groups that actually kidnap people in poor countries and put them into contact center doing these tech support scams and so on that we hear every day, right? So we are in a new era where these mafias, and as an Italian, unfortunately, I know a little bit about it, but they've transformed into this multinational crime in the digital world. And I think all of that to say that it justifies why they have more means also to develop new technologies. And then of course there are people that maybe in countries that are disavowed because of the wars and what have you. And again, what is the easiest mean to make money is cybercrime, right? So and AI, what it's doing at the moment is helping make it even more accessible, because they can create malware code that mutates, to your earlier point, Alfredo, in a much easier way than before, where you had to be a super coder, and so on and so forth. So we, unfortunately, the feeling is that we will see a still increase in volume, still increase in variety, still increase in velocity. But I want to leave with a message of hope. I think that this time, from a defender perspective, we start with a little bit of an advance, because these technology are very visible, right, in terms of infrastructure that you need to run, right?
Right.
you need an OpenAI, you need a Google Gemini, and when these are not small infrastructure that you build under under your desk, right? So it's big
Right.
data center, right? And so, if we stay, of course, I'm not going into the state actors, and these are other type of crimes of cyber issues. But if we stay in the more common economical cybercrime, then maybe we will have some instruments faster, just because we don't have a problem investing on visible infrastructure, versus the criminal want to stay hidden and defy the visibility, so they will not go and take, I don't know, a big data center to run their AI models or whatnot. So at least let's have a hope. But it feels like we do have one step ahead, and of course we need to maintain it, and that's the other.
I think you make a great, interesting point. Is that as we talk about the evolution of technology, and how we can look at more of the positive side, how it can make our lives better and different conveniences, but also on the flip side of that coin, it also streamlines, make things easier for crime to evolve. So we have to make sure that we stay cognizant and we have that readiness, and to prepare ourselves for these new evolving threats that will come on the horizon. So like I said, it's the same way our technology helps us to do different things. The criminals are looking for different ways how they can get into your account. So just have to make sure we maintain that mindset.
Absolutely.
So you said, so you support initiatives fostering diverse tech talent and entrepreneurship. What advice would you give to young, aspiring entrepreneurs, especially those from underrepresented backgrounds in tech?
Mm-hmm. Listen, I'm actually very interesting, because I was just the last 3 days at a conference in The Hague in Netherlands, from the Women for Cyber Foundation, and it's a great institution that we have in Europe that supports women that are growing in our industry, right? And similarly, there are many other diverse. So the good news is this industry has a need of many different talents. In actually is an advantage to have diversity in cybersecurity, because if you look at the criminal side, they're not diverse at all, right? They are all geeks, man. So they're very homogeneous in their own way of thinking, and so I that's a practical reason why we should have very diverse cybersecurity teams. What is important also is to realize that cybersecurity is a very wide discipline, right? So you can be in intelligence, where curiosity and ability to read data is the most important thing. You can be in data engineering for writing detection rules, and that's more programming. You can be in GRC, where it's more about process and project management.
Right.
So I think there is space for any kind of skills, and I think that my personal challenge is more with the incumbent, the people that are already in the industry, that tend to have more of a gating type of mentality, right? I keep saying, you don't need to know how to convert a subnet to be in cybersecurity. Maybe you need to if you're working on network security, but that's kind of one slice of what you need to do, right? So I think what is important to know is that, number one, look at me, I don't have a university degree. So, I started just by passion when I was 4 years old. My father put me in front of the first computer that arrived in the south of Italy. I still use that keyboard at home 43 years later, figuring it out. But, I've learned all just by doing. And I think it's still possible today. I see some of the people in my team, on the threat research team, they are very passionate. Number one thing you need to have is curiosity. Curiosity is the critical element to me to be successful in this industry. And then, passion for learning, because the reality is, 3 months from now, the threats will be different. The technology will be different.
Exactly.
So you cannot still stand still. So, but if you have curiosity and passion for learning, then, I'm sure you can find your way, and you just have to decide. Not necessarily everybody has to go in red teaming. There is so many other disciplines. Just find one that is less, penetrated or researched or searched for, and go for it. But I think my feeling is that it's among all the industries the one where unfortunately we do have a diversity problem, but it's probably the one where it's easier to solve, because the need is so important of smart people that, if you are passionate and if you are curious and you love learning, you'll find your way.
100%. I think to your point, how broad the industry is helps get like a foothold, but the specialization is a means to which the gatekeeping or gating happens, because like to your point, folks, at least here in the States, they like to say you need to go to university. You need to go, you need to get a cert. You need to be a, 10x Python developer, right? No, you don't get that inside of 8 years or 10 years of a career, 4-year school, another degree, and then 10 years, career. You don't get that. So how am I gonna circumvent that? And you made the point of staying curious and landing in that broad area. So I respect that, because that's definitely an advantage in cybersecurity, but it's not really spoken to a whole lot.
Yeah, and also let's be real. It's complicated to stay in this industry. Maybe
100%.
it's very difficult to get in, but staying in, it's thankless because you have to keep learning. That's why I'm saying if you don't have the passion, it's difficult, because the amount of effort to just stay on top of it is very, very large. So don't do it because it pays well. Don't do it because it feels like these 4 million people missing from the industry, legend, right? That these are not the right reason to get into cybersecurity. Cybersecurity is a vocational type role. It's a bit like being a nurse or a doctor. I think it's the closest it gets to that, right? You need to keep learning. You need to be very curious and be ready to put up the work. But it's fascinating because it's very purposeful. At the same time, that you are fighting the bad guys and it's keeping them at bay. So you get up in the morning knowing that you are going to make a difference. And I think that's, to me, the thing that will motivate the most to be part of it.
100%.
I think that's a great point. Because if I think number one, it comes down like, what is your why? What is your purpose? Why is it that you're pursuing this career in cybersecurity? As you mentioned, Luigi, if your sole purpose is just about to make money, and again, you can't ignore the money. Money is an important component, but if that's your sole purpose, then you're not going to last long. You can make the money, then you could make money delivering pizza. I mean, what I'm saying? So it has to be more than that. You have to have that, as you mentioned, that passion, that drive, because it is going to change. You do have to keep up and keep learning and making sure you're up to speed with everything that's happening. And especially if you get into like leadership, that you are surrounding yourself with those who have that knowledge, and that way you can keep yourself abreast. But if you're not doing those things, then maybe cybersecurity is not for you, because it does require that drive and really that purpose. But outside of that, then it's going to be easy to fall off. But
let me just get in for just a second. I do want to take the opposite mindset too, though, because it is about the money in a sense. You just have to target the skills to pay the bills, right? A lot of folks that come into cybersecurity, they often are not in that mindset because they haven't led, right? They're not even in industry. They don't have access to industry. So they need to target the skills to get in, to pay their immediate adverse bills, because let's be real, with some of the diversity challenges that we're talking about, some folks can't even afford to go to school. Some folks can't even afford to get a certificate or certification. So they just need to target that skill in the network, in the industry, to pay those bills down first. So that's why it's so challenging too, because there's an adverse effect thinking it's just I can lead from the gate, into cybersecurity, or I could just jump in and get these experiences, when it's I need to target that specific niche and get the skills to pay the bills lucratively. So that's the thing.
I think you are saying it very, very well, and I would add that if you have to choose between spending 1 year taking a certification, spending money for that certification, or 1 year working in a maybe tech support job, doing network assistance or things like that, I'd rather go for the second one, because it's practice and experience in this job is a lot more recognized than any paper, because that's obsolete by the time you get these certifications anyway, right? Now, one thing that I think is missing, and more probably here in the US than elsewhere, is company investing in their people, right? I think that's, to me, in Europe we do have a few capabilities like apprenticeship and other type of contracts where there is more investment of the company on the people to bring them on board. Here it's much more rough in terms of sink or swim from a cultural perspective. So each one of the people have to kind of build their stepping stones, right? And that's what I was saying. Get into a tech support role, work with an association, build your own lab, whatever that you need to be much more creative, and I recognize it's much more difficult. So not hiding on that, right? But on the other end, it's still a place that does require skill set and competencies, and as we say, it's very purposeful and something that you would never get annoyed with.
So your passion for speed extends beyond the digital world to racing. Your Delaro Stradale. How does your experience on the track influence your approach to business and innovation at BforeAI?
Listen, I mean, I think that the more I learn, to build this company that we're working on with BforeAI, the more I find parallels. And the reality is that I love speed, hence why I created BforeAI. BforeAI is all about speed, right? So it's more that the direction. But then you look at it, and there are many different learning. One of the learning that I would say is probably one of the most principle for me is that when you race cars, you can decide to be focused on your competitors and be in the battle in the race, or be focused on getting better and better at each single lap, right? And so what I've learned is that the best thing is that if you fight against yourself and the chronometer, if you want, and you try to improve yourself every day, then generally you'll be in front of the others. You don't have to care about them, right? So I think that's very similar in business to how you work with your how much you look at your competitors. And for me, I'm not obsessed by them. Of course, I glance at them every now and then in a moment of pause to see what they're doing, but I'm more focused on us being more innovative, bring something new to the market, grow as a team, knowing that that relentless improvement every day is what will keep us being upfront, and even toward the criminals. In this case, it's also very relevant. So that's an example, but there are so many other. It's one of the things lately. So BforeAI has a very peculiar characteristic. The team is completely distributed. We have no physical office anywhere in the world. Today we are 82 people in 34 countries, representing 38 nationalities, nearly half women, an extremely diverse organization, both culturally and by minds. And but once a year we bring all together. So 3 weeks ago we were in Sicily. Everybody flew in, and we had a fantastic week together. Planning for we had an event we call Prepare, planning for the coming months. And one of the things that to me was also very that you can connect with the speed and with my past in racing is that I told the team, listen, we are not a family. Don't think to this as a family. We are a sport team, a high-level competition sport team. Each one of you has a role. Each one of you has to give their best for us to win the championship, right? So, and I think it's a better, this is another case where it's a better analogy to use sports, with the company, and my background in this case helps than others that look at more of a fluffy family type thing. The reality is you're gonna fire somebody. You never fire anybody in a family. Worst case, you don't talk to them, right? But this doesn't happen in a company. You cannot stop talking to people, right? You get so long story short, I think you can find a lot of similarities between sports of any kind, competition sports and companies at fast growth like we are at BforeAI.
100%. May I jump in real quick too? When you said this, right, and I'm just gonna take a shot in the dark here. You're not worried about any of the incumbents today catching up to you because they'll never will, right?
Now, listen. First of all, I think cybersecurity is an interesting industry from the aspect that it's not truly competition because, first of all, there's so many different facets of the industry. And, we do want to have a different approach to the cyber risk because cybercrime is so wide, right? So, there is a lot of collaboration happening in the industry, data exchanges. We were, last week at the Google AI and for cybersecurity startup accelerator. Google, you could say, is one of our competitors, but they're actually helping us grow. So you see, it's a very interesting industry from this aspect. But on the other hand, I think that there is an interesting aspect of our technology specifically, that is where the models get better with time. And why they get better with time is because they have more data. But this data that we use to feed into the model cannot be recreated after the fact. So if you were not there on the 20th of April, 2021, collecting that infrastructure, what it was doing, you'll never know, right? And so where I feel more protected in what we do is that I know that the type of data we have been collecting for the last 5 years, nobody stores because it's humongous. Nobody thinks that it has much value. We stored it because we needed it for our models. And so today, that these 5 years that we have been working on is our advantage. If somebody starts today or maybe even a year ago to try and do what we're doing, well, they need 3-4 years of data before they get as good as us. But meanwhile, we have had another 3-4 years data. We got better as well, right? So I'm not saying that we are shielded by competition, but once again, if we stay focused on staying up front and one step ahead, then the other will stay behind.
That's awesome.
I love it. Yeah, I love it.
So again, we have Luigi Lenguito here on the Cyber Coffee Hour, part of the Alive Podcast Network, as we transition. Just learn more about Luigi and also maybe some recreational, personal aspects about him as well. So first, Luigi, like, what are, in your opinion, the most significant emergent threats in cybersecurity today, and how should organizations prepare for them?
One that is, I think, very worrying is the emergence of those very realistic deepfakes for a number of reasons, right? So one, because they are becoming impossible to spot, right? So it's not a new threat per se because it's still impersonation. That is the oldest threat that the humanity has ever known, but it's much more realistic and much more difficult to identify. So the human skill that even before was quite flimsy now become totally worthless, right? And the use of those deep fakes is also very scary because they start as a state actor tool to influence, elections, to influence the discourse, to create problem on democracies. Now they're becoming very powerful for, the likes of financial scams and what's called the peak butchering, right, where a victim get attacked multiple times and lose, not only their money but also psychologically they become victim, right? So I think the challenge I see is that some of those cybercrime are becoming more and more violent from a target perspective, with technology that, as we said earlier, is making it easier to make them happen. So, definitely, I think to watch this evolution of deepfake. In our case, we are focusing on a specific use case, that is the use of deepfake video in live conferencing. So, think a Zoom conference, team conference,
right,
in which one of the participants may be an avatar generated by AI, impersonating an executive of a firm to generate some form of financial scam. And so we are building a product and a technology to identify those and signal within the conferencing to the other participant that there is that intrusion, and eventually drop the call to avoid the scam to happen. So definitely focused on fighting this one among the other things that we're doing. But it's just one of the many. Unfortunately, the problem is only going to grow, as we said earlier, in velocity, variety, and volume. So it's deepfake. That said, I think is one of the most dangerous because it's really playing to the human limitation, right? We do trust video naturally. We trust the eyes most than anything else of our sense, and this is really going in that direction. So it's very, very dangerous.
Luigi, can you help me with something too? Because I'm catching up to you on the deep fakes. What is that more sophisticated than the traditional padding of like a sock puppet or background and profile that was developed by like a human operator? Is that the I guess the scam, like generating this all in technology?
Yeah, it's more so that there are a couple of elements to that, right? So first of all, if the video, the deepfake video is so precise as now it's becoming in those tools that the criminals use, it actually triggers some automatic trust in the individual, right? So they're playing on a psychological mechanism. and I'm not an expert at that. I just know that it unfortunately works. And the second thing is that because it's becoming so cheap and so easy to make it, it's gonna be used more and more in an automated fashion, so at scale, right? So before, even to do fake emails, it required some work, right? And now we know that with generative AI, ChatGPT or what have you, you can have these fake emails. Actually, you should check if there is a typo, because if there is a typo, it's a natural mistake, right? If there is no typo, it's automated. But now you're going into video and at scale, right, where you can program a GPT to go and look at data on a given Facebook profile and collect data from LinkedIn about that person. And basically, the GPT has the story and has the background information to have a natural conversation now, representing that person or with that person, depending on what the criminal want to do. So I think that's the scary part, is that it's not just the video replication that has more trust, but there will be a ton of information that these systems are able to use to lure the other people, the victims, into doing a wire transfer, provide a credit card number or whatever you, and at scale again, it's all automated, so you don't need one person can manage millions of those scams at the same time. So that I think Sam Altman say something about very soon there will be $1 billion company with a single employee. Listen, I think I can bet easily that the criminal venture will be there first.
Right.
Because, for them it's a much easier. They don't have regulation, they don't have laws, so they have a much easier path to success, if you want, than natural companies.
What was the first piece of technology that sparked your interest in cybersecurity?
Oh, this is very nice. Not necessarily in cyber, I would say more in IT. So I'm born in 1977. This is the same year that the Voyager 2's lander was sent into space. This is a space object that is now well beyond the solar solar, how you call it, solar system, and it's still working, by the way. So it's 47 years old. It's born on the same date as me, as my brother in the space, and studying. I remember having a book when I was so very little about this space thing, and reading all the technologies and the solid state. They used technology that at the time was science fiction to build it.
Yeah,
and it's still working 43 years later, because they use such an innovation type stuff at the time. And so I think that definitely is one of the elements that drove me into IT and computers in general. Cyber, it's kind of born on me more because I do have that background. I do understand how these criminals act and how they turn what would be a hack into an actual crack, right? So that's and one thing that by now you probably have been noticing is I never use the word hacker, because I don't think we should use it, right? These are all bad. These are really criminals. Exactly. No, it's a very bad use, right? Yeah. But then maybe there is also a movie, right? One of the movie I love the most is War Games from 1984 or 1982. I don't know.
We saw it in the 90s, though.
I think I saw it. I was maybe 10 when I saw it.
But not a young spry Matthew Broderick.
Absolutely. Not many know that the word firewall was for the first time used in an IT kind of fashion in that movie. So it's really where cybersecurity started, right? And I would say that movie is probably the one that has kind of set me on the course eventually to get to BforeAI.
So we have another question. What challenge and obstacles would you say you've overcome to get where you are today?
Listen, I'm very lucky, right? So first, that my parents let me spend countless hours in front of a screen. Right? In today's world, with all the conversation that is around, phones and whatnot, I think it would have been different. But at the time, I spent literally countless hours. I'm very fortunate, of course, because my father put me in front of a computer. I was 4 years old, right? So that means that the factory had the means to buy that computer. So I cannot say that I had any particular obstacle to do my career. I would say on the other end, I think you will be very hard pressed to find somebody more passionate and more focused on learning than me, right? So I look more at my strengths and what I have developed over time as pretty unique capabilities. It's, for me, a roadblock is not even something that I conceive, right? I just go through and move through it, right? It's more about the stamina and the stubbornness as well, if you want to get to a certain destination, right? But for me, I used to joke with people that when they have a problem with their computer, if I get close, the computer fixes itself. Right? I don't even have to touch it.
Right. The signal was sent out.
I have a magnetism, but it's I don't know, but I love fixing computer. Anything from Windows registries to the most complicated technical configuration on network network SANs and likes. So listen, I don't think I have had any particular trouble or challenge. More stay the course and do the what passionate me has been, what has helped me succeed.
Okay, now on a more serious and lighter note, what is your favorite coffee preference?
Well, I come from Napoli in the south of Italy, where you have the best coffee in the world, and it's the very small espresso. But I do have a very nice coffee machine at home where you put the grains and it kind of crushes them and do the coffee on the fly, right? So I do have a passion for coffee, but the strong one.
Is there any particular brand that you like that's a stronger one than the other?
There's many not necessarily known brands that are more kind of doing some specific cooking of the grains and so on. Of course, they're all Italian, right? So you have the commercial one like the Lavazza, the Illy. These are already very good ones. But then there are more, I'd say more niche, like Passalacqua, for example, that would be very specific. And maybe here in New York you can find them because there are so many Italians and they're probably imported. But,
so we're gonna have to check that out. I'm gonna have to keep an eye out for that now.
Absolutely, it's a yellow package.
Nice. So, if you could have any superpower to help you in IT or cybersecurity, what would it be and why?
Oh, listen, at this moment in time, I would like to be able to teleport myself, like in Star Trek. Beam me up.
Right.
I'm spending countless time in planes and because of the need to be in many different places for events or meeting customers. And definitely, I love to be, able to skip the travel time. But, that probably at the moment would be my best superpower.
We had another guest say that, and we couldn't remember the name of Nightcrawler in the X-Men. It seems like that's a very sought after power of teleportation and translation, which I didn't know the difference was. Not knowing the spot versus picking the specific spot to be in. So I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I did hear a couple of years, 5 or 6 years ago, there were some physics experiments that started to teleport, some particles. So the technology is being studied, and who knows? Maybe we will see it before my retirement next retirement.
Oh my God!
Wow. And last question, Luigi. Do you have any what are your hobbies, interests, recreation activities you like to do outside of work?
I love again going on track with my fast cars. It's I'm still super passionate about actually driving on track. And so, whenever possible, and I do a lot less now than I used to do a few years ago, I would put my car on the small track and move it to, Catalonia or Spa-Francorchamps or Monza or any of the other tracks that exist in Europe and spend a couple of days there, just lapping around and enjoying the speed. That's definitely it's an expensive but passion that I love. Otherwise, it's just spending time with my family and my daughters and traveling around. Next weekend we'll be in Canada. This week I'm actually meeting them down in Florida. They're flying to stay together. So it's I'll be working and spending time with them. So it's family man. For when possible.
Nice.
Luigi, we definitely thank you for being on the show today. We had a great time just learning about you, learning about your company, your projects. So before we go, is there anything you want to share with our listeners?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I love to do. First of all, thanks. It has been a fantastic conversation and very nice topics. I would love to continue the conversation. So anyone, please follow me on LinkedIn. I'm very active on LinkedIn. It's linkedin.com/in/Lenguito, or check BforeAI. And if you feel that we can do something for you without, let me know.
All right. Awesome. Thank you. And thank you for those listening and watching for another episode of the Cyber Coffee Hour, part of the Alive Podcast Network. If you enjoyed this episode, explore more engaging content in the Alive Podcast Network app. By supporting this podcast and nearly 100 other Black hosted shows, you can enjoy ad-free listening while contributing to a diverse range of voices in the podcasting space. We appreciate your support and look forward to sharing more insightful conversations with you in our next episode. So until then, keep brewing those ideas and stay curious about cybersecurity. All right, that's it. It's a wrap.
Thank you.
We out of here. Peace.